This episode is brought to you by my one and only food and mood journal. This is an 8-week food and mood journal and planner for beginners where you can track how food affects your mood, your hunger, and your energy levels. Are you sick and tired of promising yourself to stop binge eating? Do you feel out of control with food and you just don't know why you overeat? You might have intense cravings leading to self-sabotage. My food and mood journal is the perfect tool to help you tune into your signals that your body sends you. And by tracking what you eat and drink will help you give insight on how food affects your moods. This is an 8-week kickstart to mindful eating to help you identify the triggers that make you want to eat when you're not physically hungry. So this includes a food tracker, a mood and stress tracker, because we know that stress eating can also lead to overeating. We also have an 8-week goals tracker with journal prompts and affirmations. You'll also track things like your water intake and exercise. It makes a beautiful gift for anyone who feels out of control with food. It's an easy to use journal and it will give you just the insights to help you get on the path to stop binge eating, emotional eating, or any other form of overeating. So get your food and mood journal today by clicking the link in the show notes. Thank you. Welcome to Beyond Overeating by Wholesome Lifestyle Project, the Overeating podcast, where I'll be showing up weekly to share with you what I've learned during my binge eating recovery, helpful tools such as yoga, mindfulness, and energy medicine. My name is Stell, and my purpose is to inform and educate so that you can fast track your recovery in healing your relationship with food and finally trust yourself around the peanut butter jar. Join me as I share top tips, my struggles and triumphs to help inspire or just entertain. Remember, there is nothing wrong with you if you can't stop overeating. That's why I'm here to guide you. Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond Overeating podcast by Wholesome Lifestyle Project. My name is Stell Coombe-Heath. I'm so excited that you have found this podcast. If this is the first time you are listening, or if you've been listening for a while, I'm so happy to have you back here. I can't believe that it's the end of 2021. So this will be the last podcast for the year. And I am just so excited and always just happy to be here. Like Wednesdays are one of my most fun days because I get to hang out, I get to record an episode for you, I get to bring you some value when it comes to binge eating recovery. And I'm excited today to be here and also just thank you for all your support and everything that you have supported me with throughout this year, whether you're just listening to one or two of the episodes, whether you've shared this with a friend, whether you've shared this on your Instagram stories, whether you've written and left me a review. Thank you so much. Everything that you do from that perspective really helps to support this podcast so that I can get more people who need help, who need to end the war with food in their bodies so that they can hear this podcast. My mission is to help 1 million women have a better relationship with food in their bodies. And this is my way to start and initiate that process. And this is my way of getting my message across that, there's nothing wrong with you. You are on a journey, and, through some of the advice that I like to share, I'm just excited that you get to be part of that journey, and I get to help and guide you possibly just through some of the issues that you are struggling with. So Today's episode is really about rewiring your overeating brain. And what I'll be sharing with you is a recent masterclass that I completed. Actually, just yesterday, we did a masterclass on rewiring your overeating brain mastermind. And through that, there were a lot of questions. People felt like they just received such a shift. And I thought, well, this is perfect. Why not share it with you as well? And in saying so, I wanted to just announce that the Rewire Your Overeating Brain Mastermind doors are open for next year, January. We start on the 10th of January. So if you are wanting to get a handle on mindlessly binge eating, or if you want to get a handle on constantly thinking about food, if you want to get a handle on late night binge eating, or maybe you feel like you obsessively trying to eat healthy all the time, but it just keeps backfiring. Maybe you're sick of yo-yo dieting, or maybe you feel you just keep self-sabotaging. I'd love to invite you to join us in the Rewire Your Overeating Brain Mastermind, because those are the topics and the things that we actually work through to have a better relationship with food. So the Rewire Your Overeating Brain Mastermind starts on the 10th of January. We work on 3 specific areas. The first pillar is to heal your relationship with food. If we can't start there, unfortunately, anything else we try and fix is not going to work. So we start there. And from there, we start looking at why you binge and how you can actually overcome that with easy to use tools and strategies that I give you. And really, they are the most practical and simple things, because I know that people are busy. Ain't nobody got time to sit on a mountain and meditate for hours, right? Yes, meditation is important, but we don't have time for those, or nobody's got time for saying affirmations that they don't actually believe in. So I give you the tools that are most effective, that's going to help you get from binge eating to being in a space where you feel in control with food, where you actually feel that binge eating is no longer an issue. You don't think about food all the time anymore, and you're able to eat mindfully without being triggered. So I wanted to celebrate just 3 of my clients who've been through the Rewire Your Overeating Brain Mastermind. I had client sessions with them today, and each one of them has had an amazing win, which we celebrated. And each one of them was a different win. So my first client had improved health numbers. So she had problems with her blood pressure, and her pulse was really weak. And through reestablishing a healthy relationship with food and getting onto a health path, she actually had the all clear from her doctors. They're like, oh, we don't know what you did so quickly, but your pulse and everything is just so much better. My second client realized today that she was able to catch her urge to binge, and she was able to actually make that choice whether she's going to eat. And if she was eating, she didn't binge, or she chooses not to eat. So, which is massive when it comes to binge eating recovery. Having that awareness of understanding your urge and being able to stop it or nip it in the bud is so empowering. My last client for today, she's going through a tremendous stressful time. It's usually stressful at the end of the year, but she's also moving to a different state. So her whole life is kind of focused at the moment on getting her house packed up. And she's telling me all these things. She's telling me she's exhausted, and I'm like, but what you're not telling me is that you are binge eating. She's like, yeah, actually, I'm not binge eating. I'm going through all this shit, all this organizing and all this stuff that would usually make me binge, and I am not binge eating. So that is an amazing win. And she's just finished the last round of the Rewire Your Overeating Brain Mastermind. So huge wins from my clients. It's amazing what is possible for you. It's actually very easy to stop binge eating when you have the right tools and the right steps in the right order to make it happen. So I'd love for you to join the mastermind if you are ready. But if you are still just wanting to listen to the episodes here, you are welcome to go back to some of the replays, because the podcast will be on pause just until January, as I am going away, which I'm looking forward to so much. But we will be beach camping, and I cannot guarantee that there will be Wi-Fi. So I'd rather preempt that you might have to binge listen, mind the pun, to some of the older episodes. And as always, please share these with your friends, share them on your Instagram stories, tag someone that needs it, tag me in your story. I'd love to celebrate with you when you find an aha moment in one of my episodes. And also, if you are really enjoying this podcast, please rate and review this on any platform that you're listening to. Make sure that you subscribe so that you get first notification when I release a new episode, which is usually weekly, except for the next 2 weeks. Thank you so much for all your support. For those of you who celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. For those of you who are just celebrating the holidays, Happy Holidays. And I can't wait to see you all in the new year. Happy New Year. Sending you all my love from my heart in gratitude and peace. Welcome, everybody. Let me know where you're from in the comments and the last thing you ate. I just had a little bit of granola. A friend of mine, or actually one of my yoga students, actually made homemade granola for Christmas, just to say thank you so much for an amazing year. So that's what I had. But hi, my name is Stell. This masterclass is where I will show you how to rewire your overeating brain. Thank you for taking this time out and being here today. I've been binge-free for over 3 years, and I've helped over 150 women this year heal their relationship with food. I've facilitated over 500 hours in coaching in 2 years, and I'm excited to share this topic with you today. So give me a hell yeah in the comments if you're ready to rewire your overeating brain. Now, just before we get started, I'd love for you to just check in and connect. This is your opportunity to use your mobile phone, take a photo of the screen, pop a story into Instagram and tag me at Wholesome Lifestyle Projects, just to show that you have joined in this training, and also just to get the word out that it's great for us to talk about stuff that's that will help us heal our emotional eating and binge eating. So I want you to be present in this masterclass. So please turn off your phones, allow yourself to immerse yourself in this training. And I want you to make the best of your time with me. So switch off your mobile phone, find a quiet place where you won't be disturbed, and immerse yourself in what I'm about to share with you. So in this masterclass, you will learn tools and strategies to help you stop binge eating. Step 1, I will show you how to heal your relationship with food and why your brain thinks food is the answer. Step 2, I'll show you how to heal emotional wounds and freeing your mind of food and body thoughts. Step 3, building habits that last to help you feel radiant and confident. And we'll learn more about my Rewire Your Overeating Brain mastermind and how you can win a bonus mastermind coaching worth over $500. So just imagine for a second if you were able to finally have a month of being binge-free and not losing control with food. I'm asking because I couldn't experienced that. Nowadays, I am a binge and emotional eating recovery specialist. I mentor people into recovery. I'm a dog mom, a yoga teacher, and I've been binge free for over 3 years. But 3 years ago, I didn't think that that was possible. And I remember when I finally decided that it's ready for me to actually just heal. And I remember this day as clear as if it was yesterday. It was about 3 years ago on a Thursday around November. And I just finished absolutely everything in the pantry after already binging on a whole pack of binge foods. I was in tears. In fact, I was actually ugly crying on the floor, hugging my dog, and just wishing that I could be free of the hold food had on me. Now, I know that's probably an extreme. Maybe you don't feel exactly in that way, but this was my life. I have seen many professionals, and according to the statistical diagnostics back then, there was no diagnosis for me or what I had. So for over 13 years, I struggled with a disordered relationship with food, resulting in 2 eating disorders, body dysmorphia, and emotional eating. There was no one out there to help me. I felt like a failure, and I had a successful career. I had supporting friends, a loving husband, but I could not get a grip on my binge eating. And on this particular Thursday, I cried as if my best friend has just died. I hope that day never comes, but like, it was like really, really such an emotional time for me. And I felt hopeless. I felt so out of shame, and I felt out of control. And it was in that moment where I knew I needed to help myself heal. I started researching for ways that could work. And I found information about rewiring your brain. Back then, it wasn't called rewiring your brain. It was just ways to heal. And so I started applying for these appointments, but most of them I didn't show up because I was too afraid. I was scared of being judged. I was scared that people might not believe me, like in the past, where the health professionals told me I just needed more discipline on my eating plan, or I just needed to manage my stress levels. And I had no idea how that, what that meant, or so I kind of like just struggled on my own. And eventually I found a coach actually who specialized in eating disorder recovery. She was part of my coaching school, and I was studying coaching at the same time. And I really loved what she had to say. She had a very different opinion from all the other health professionals I've seen. So through that process, I started working with her, and I learned to heal my relationship with food through rewiring my brain and how to become mindful of my emotions. And finally, I was able to build new habits that no longer had me shackled to food or calories or over exercise or whatever I used to cope with my binge eating. And 3 months into my recovery, I realized I no longer reach for food when having a bad day. I was able to have some chocolate without finishing the entire block. And I knew that I needed to help others out there who were struggling like me. So no one should ever have to have that kind of relationship with food. No one should suffer in the shame or guilt for what their bodies look like. And unfortunately, society, also known as the diet industry, tells us that we need to look a certain way to be acceptable. We need to judge ourselves and others for our food choices, and we need to starve our bodies to get there. And as human beings, it's not what life is about. We deserve to accept ourselves and others without feeling ashamed about our bodies. And that's why I do what I do. And that's why I'm now the #1 authority in helping women stop binge and emotional eating, because I don't want people to carry on and feel trapped like I did for over 13 years. So one of my clients, Corinne Roos, she approached me and she said, Stel, I have actually no idea where to go. I feel lost. I just feel like this thing of binge eating and not feeling in control with food is just ruining my life. And she actually, worked with me in the Rewire Your Overeating Brain Mastermind. And here's what she had to say. She felt like she just had new ways of looking at her life. She had new tools to practice and improve her relationship with food and to heal her relationship with herself, which she didn't really know was out of whack as well. So she was able to walk away with new habits and she knew how to deal with her emotions. And she was able to change her life, and she didn't even realize what life could be like without that. And I'm not sharing this with you to brag or anything. I just wanted to let you know that it's not just me who's experienced what I've experienced. Some of my clients have too. So let's start with the first step of rewiring your overeating brain. And this is based on my binge-free blueprint. And the first step for me is always healing your relationship with food. So my client Sam wanted me to help her stick to her food plan, and she wanted me to teach her how to have more willpower. And she's been white knuckling for years with one eating plan and fluttering from one eating plan to the next, being more strict with her plans, but she still binged. She believed she was weak and just needed more willpower to stick to her plan. But the reason why you overeat is because of an urge. This urge is a biological response created by your hypothalamus that sits at the bottom of your brainstem, and it is triggered by hunger, emotions, and habits. So how this works is usually when we're trying to control binge eating, we cut out more and more foods trying to control ourselves. Unfortunately, that creates a hormonal imbalance in the body. Our hunger is in overdrive, which means we actually put ourselves into survival mode. Our physiological response to that will override all forms of logic, and it will make you eat as much as possible. The next thing that we normally use food for is emotions. Now, this is not your fault. This is something that we have learned over the years, and what our parents learned over the years, and what our grandparents learned over the years, great-grandparents. We were never taught how to deal with our emotions, but we were taught to celebrate with food, to soothe with food. And I'll talk more about this as we go along. The third part is habits. So along the line, we have formed habits around hunger and emotional needs and using food to cope with those needs. So your relationship with food is much deeper than self-control. If you look at the little diagram here, we have on the conscious level, we have our dieting behavior, we have exercise, we've got maybe an obsession with weights. We also have willpower and thoughts and perception. Willpower is very short-lived and it can't last for very long. Then we have the subconscious mind, where we have our memories, our knowledge, our memories of body shame or memories of trauma, false diet knowledge. And then deep in the unconscious, where our habit sits, is where the habit sits, but also the things that drive our habits, such as your instincts, your motives, your fears, your beliefs, your urges, your low self-esteem, perfectionism, emotional wounds, past traumas, depression, anxiety, and your limiting beliefs. So the thing that drives your eating behavior is called an urge, and the urge sits deep within the unconscious mind. Sam, my client who I mentioned earlier, she thought that if she could stick to her eating plan and lose some weight, then all her problems would disappear. However, while working with her, we realized that her limiting beliefs, her emotions, and her low self-esteem is what actually caused her binge eating. Willpower sits on the surface level in the conscious mind. Here's where we use dieting and exercise, positive affirmations to influence our behavior with food. But you can't fix an unconscious behavior or unconscious triggers with surface level things like diet and exercise and affirmations. Affirmations are amazing, but you need to understand how to use them in order for them to actually be effective. And like any relationship, we need to dig deeper to make that relationship work. That's what's below the surface, and that's what needs to be healed, or that's what needs to be understood. You don't need any willpower. In fact, what I'm going to teach you will help you to heal your relationship with food, and you don't even need any willpower for that. So how do we actually change? How do we rewire ourselves in any behavior, really? Our bodies or our behavior or personality is made up of like our thinking, and I'm basing this off a cognitive behavioral model. So we all have thoughts. We actually have about 12 to 60,000 thoughts per day, and 80% of those thoughts are negative thoughts. And 95% of the thoughts you thought today are the same exact thoughts you thought yesterday. So pretty much what that means is we're constantly thinking negative thoughts, and that's just part of the brain trying to help us survive and trying to solve problems and thinking of the worst case scenario so it can preempt those things. Unfortunately, we start using these worst case scenarios when it comes to our bodies. So when we have an emotional or a thought, we have a chemical reaction to that thought, and that is in the form of an emotion. And if your thoughts are negative about yourself and you have this mind that's filled with internal verbal assault, you're going to feel even worse about yourself. You're going to have the thoughts that make you feel negative, and the emotions will just keep continuing to drive you into that negative spiral. And then eventually we have we behave from an emotional standpoint. And usually our behavior would be binge eating, comfort eating, or maybe dieting and restricting to make up for binge eating. So we repeat these things over and over again. So the thought might be, oh my gosh, my body is just so ugly, I need to lose weight. The emotion there might be fear of acceptance, or it might be shame, it might be guilt for eating too many chocolates, for example, whatever the case is. And then we get into this behavior of restricting or going on a cleanse or trying out intermittent fasting. And if you don't know what you're doing with those things, it can be extremely dangerous and triggering. And unfortunately, if we repeat that over and over again, eventually we will end up binge eating to avoid the emotions, but also just out of habit, out of hunger, like I explained earlier. So as we repeat these patterns, this cognitive behavior actually becomes our personality. So in order for us to actually change, we need to change our personality. We need to change the thoughts that stimulate the emotions that drive our behavior. And our personality is at an unconscious level, like I talked about with the iceberg. So if you are watching this, I have drawn a little circle. And what I'd like for you to do is take a pen and paper, and if you need to pause this, please do so. What I'd like for you to do is draw a circle on a piece of paper. and then divide that circle into 12 parts. The 12 parts representing 12 hours of our awake day. So it doesn't have to be neat. I just want you to start getting a physical representation of what this might look like for you. All right. So once you have this, once you have drawn your little circle, I was just checking into the comments. Once you've drawn into your little circle, what I'd like for you to do is color in the amount of hours that you think about family, about work, about your shape, your weight, eating, exercise, and then other. So break it down into those components. How many hours a day do you think about your family? So if it's 2 hours, for example, then color in 2 little of the hour blocks. If it's work and you think about work for 3 hours, then put color in 3 hours. Same with shape, weight, and eating, and then other. If you need to pause to continue with this, please do so, because it can give you so much information about your current cognitive relationship with food. Okay, so I'm going to move on. What I'd like for us to do now. All right, so basically, now that you've drawn your little circle and you've colored in the circles, I have put up an example of what my circle looked like. So during any given day, for example, I would have probably 2 hours dedicated to family, about 1 hour to other, about 3 hours to work, and the rest of the time, so half my time, so 6 hours out of that sample period would be spent thinking about my shape, my weight, my eating, and exercise to make up for eating. So what this shows is that half my day was consumed with weight and dieting and exercise thoughts. And if you look at this little circle, like only 3 hours was spent on work, which already presents a problem because I used to be at work for 8 hours a day. So you can see how distracted I was. Even when I was at work, I would have constant food thoughts, constant thinking about my body, and it kind of just took over my life. So if your pie chart is not balanced, it can lead to marginalization of other areas in your life where nothing else matters. Your interests, your relationships, hobbies, everything can be ignored. And this creates an imbalance in the brain. Your neurons that fire together, wire together, meaning your brain sees the emotional response that you have to the thoughts about your shape and your weight and the thoughts you have about binge eating. And it will therefore think that you need to think more of these thoughts. And that's why it starts filling your day 95% of the time with the same thoughts. And what I would like for you to consider is that your body shape, your weight, and eating is not fully in your control. The diet industry has made us believe that it is, but we only have limited ability to control our eating because of a physiological control about our bodies. Our bodies are built to survive. So we can only control so much when it comes to our eating. We can also only control our body shape or physique. Very, very, very little of that is actually in our control, because we can't control our DNA. We can't control our metabolism. We can't control the mechanisms that release fat. So
We can't control our bone structure. We can't control how we retain water or whatever the case is. So there are lots of people who will seem more attractive or successful in your eyes, and you are not failing because you look different to them. You are failing because you think you need to fit in with everyone else. And that's what the diet industry is telling you. You need to fit into a certain size or a certain look in order for you to be accepted. If your thoughts of food, shape, and weight dominate your personality, can you see why your behavior with food is out of control? If you're thinking about food all the time, of course you're going to lose control with food, right? If you repeatedly checking your body, you will learn to be dissatisfied with your body, and this is going to create an emotional response to feel disappointment and constant shame or constant judgment of yourself. And then that's going to lead to restrictive eating or dangerous ways to try and manage and control your body. And that can lead into hunger and finally binge eating. And sometimes this can go even further into dangerous eating disorders. So the first way for us to heal our relationship with food is to reject diet culture. Dieting is the number cause of disordered eating behaviors, such as emotional eating, restrictive eating, and serious eating disorders. The most typical goal a person who decides to lose weight, however, dieting perpetuates unhealthy relationships with food. It teaches us to distrust our bodies and to ignore the signals that our bodies send us. We end up yo-yo dieting because we're on these restrictive patterns. We keep losing and gaining weight. And unfortunately, that creates negative health effects, including increased risks of heart disease or long-lasting negative impacts on your metabolism. Dieting forces your body into starvation mode. It's going to respond by slowing down many of its normal functions to conserve energy, which means that your natural metabolism actually slows down. No matter what the diet book says, your metabolism is slowed down because of dieting. It's not sped up. And dieters who cut out extreme food groups are at risk of missing out on important nutrients. For example, dieters often don't get enough calcium, leaving them at risk for osteoporosis, stress fractures, and broken bones. Rose was one of my clients, and she was desperate to find the perfect diet. She came to see me because she was just tired of trying everything, and she was just so anxious around food. She had so many food rules. She came to me and she's like, I don't even know what to eat anymore because I can't trust anything. I just have like so many beliefs of food. I have a black and white mentality. I just have so many rules. All carbs are bad. I can't eat any fats. Sugar to me is now poison. I fear it so much. And she was always saw food as never eat that and always eat this, for example. And she obsessed about every morsel of food that she put in her mouth, and she was exhausted she was also a runner, from all the running she was doing on top of that to maintain her shape. And we worked together to help her ditch her diet rules, and she finally felt happy in her own skin. And she said to me that day, she's like, I'm happy that I don't ever want to ever have to diet again, and I'm so thrilled to walk past a bakery without having crazy thoughts telling me to get a whole box of donuts. Donuts was her binge food, and something that she always ignored. And Roz is okay now with having a donut every now and then when she feels like it, but it's not like she needs to eat the whole box. So throw away your diet books and magazine articles that give you these false hopes of losing weight quickly and easily and permanently. It's, 98% of diets don't work. So get angry at the diet culture that promotes weight loss and the lies that they have led you to feel and believe. And they might have led you to feel like you're a failure every time you can't get your diet to work and you've gained back everything that you've worked so hard for and slaved for during that diet. The second thing that I work on with my clients is to keep your body biologically fed. So hunger is the number one reason why we lose control with food. My client Mel could not stop binge eating at night. She's one of those people who was okay during the day, but at nighttime she just felt like she lost it. When the kids went to bed, she just couldn't stop. She could feel the binge foods calling her from the cupboard. And she would actually hide her peanut butter away in the garage just in case she actually lost control with the peanut butter. And she tried everything, and she even felt like she sometimes even found herself sleepwalking in the kitchen, binge eating on autopilot. And through our work together, we discovered that she was on a highly restrictive intermittent fasting plan. And as I said, if you don't use some of these plans properly, then unfortunately it is gonna create havoc in your bodies. I would not recommend intermittent fasting as a rule, because that is actually triggering to binge eating. But she was using intermittent fasting. Now, that's a bit of an extreme, but a lot of us are on diets where we might follow 1,200 calorie rules or certain macro rules, or we've cut out certain food groups, and that can lead to extended periods of hunger. And during these extended periods of hunger and calorie restriction, we abandon our hunger cues. And I've touched on this before, but this creates a hormonal imbalance in your body. So as the stomach empties, our stomachs creates a hormone called ghrelin, which tells the brain that it's time to find more food. If we ignore that signal, we will end up with excess ghrelin in our system, creating a hormonal imbalance. If that continues for too long, the hypothalamus, that part of the brain that causes the urges, will think that your body is facing starvation. And this is when the physiological urge to eat will kick in. So my client Mel and I worked on getting her body back on track and her hormones in harmony. And we were able to get her urges out of the way by just making sure that her body is biologically fed often and on a meal plan that really helped her find the energy to balance her busy life and her career. And she now honors her hunger, and she eats foods that gives her biological and bio-individual energy. She eats when she's hungry, and she knows how to stop when she's full. And this is all because of the process of working with making sure that your body is fed, which means that your body is not going to think you're starving. That's going to reduce your urges drastically. So Louise Hay is one of my favorite authors, and she wrote this beautiful quote, which I've just put here. And it says, "Whatever we are trying to release in our lives is just a symptom, an outer effect. Trying to eliminate the symptom without working on dissolving the cause is useless. The moment we release our willpower or discipline, the symptom crops up again." And when we try and work with our food issues through willpower, And dieting, unfortunately, when we stop, that our food behaviors and binge eating, it's still going to be there. So food freedom is a feeling of being in control with food that you eat, instead of food controlling you. So I would love for you to just write down on your piece of paper, what would food freedom mean to you? Type the word food freedom in the comment box if you are ready to heal your relationship with food. So let's do a quick recap before we move on to the next section. The reason why you binge or overeat is because of an urge. And this urge is an unconscious pattern or physiological response in the body. And in order for us to rewire our brain, we need to change our personality, which means we need to change our thoughts, our emotions, and our behavior. Just take a moment here to imagine what it would be like if you had a month of being binge-free and not losing control. Or even a month with not being preoccupied with food, your shape, or your body. Just imagine what that would be like. I'd love for you to write that down on a piece of paper too. All right, so step 2 in the process is to heal emotional wounds, freeing your mind of food and body thoughts. And having these food and body thoughts can lead to more emotional wounds. My client Sharon binged every single day, and she was struggling to get her diabetes under control. And she knew she had to get a grip on her binge eating. Her doctors said to her, you need to control this, get this under control. So she felt really alone and out of control with food. She knew what to eat, but she just couldn't stop turning to sugar, the one thing that the doctors told her to stay away from because of the diabetes. And we worked together to getting her eating right. But we also realized that she still struggled with emotional eating. And then we worked on healing some of the emotional wounds from her past. So in the past, she was left alone a lot. She was very lonely in the past, and her parents would leave her with sugar because they felt guilty or whatever the case. They left her with sugar. And now, whenever she was alone or when there was no one around, that started acting like a trigger event for her. And she built her personality around eating sugar when she's alone. So when we rewired her old personality, which was running on emotional wounds, she broke free of her emotional eating, and her blood sugar levels have returned to normal. So not only did she stop binge eating, but she also improved her health. And she said to me, Estelle, I went to the doctor and the doctor was so proud of my results. He said to me, this is like you were 100% a different person compared to what you were 6 weeks ago before when we did the previous test. So that's just showing you how powerful emotions are in your healing journey and why we need to address our emotions. So we need to learn how to cope with our emotions, past and present. Now, as I said before, unfortunately, we're not told how to cope with emotions. I did a social media post the other day and I wrote on there, we are taught to cope economically, but not emotionally. And the thing is, from a very young age, we are taught to manage, to be responsible with money, to be able to pay our bills, to build a future for ourselves so that we can look after children and so forth. However, we are not trained how to cope with the emotional pressures that come with all of that. So we need to be able to cope with emotions. Now, unfortunately, dealing with your emotions and coping with your emotions, past and present, is not something that I can just teach you on a 1-hour masterclass. This takes practice, and different people have different ways of dealing with their emotions. So this is quite an individual experience as well. And when we go through the Rewire Your Overeating Brain Mastermind, I teach my clients different techniques on how to manage their emotions. We also have to manage our anxiety around food. So if you are in this diet culture mind, you are going to end up fearing foods, all the foods that you think are bad or good. They are unfortunately going to trigger anxiety. When we have anxiety, that's going to create that emotional discomfort, and we might end up binge eating just because we feel bad for eating a chocolate. And lastly, we need to be able to nourish our minds and body without food. Also, something that I can't really teach you just in an hour masterclass, but just know that it is possible for you to get there. So let's just take a little bit of a step into seeing how emotions actually affect your relationship with food. So usually we have a trigger or an old wound that gets triggered, a memory of an old wound. And that can then result in us feeling uncomfortable. We feel an emotion, and all of a sudden there's this emotional discomfort. And what we want to do then is we want to distract ourselves. So we eat to feel better, because that's just part of our conditioning. As I said before, it's not your fault. It's not like you just picked it up. It's generations of using food to cope. Since a baby, you were probably soothed with food when you cried and felt an emotion. The parents didn't know what was going on, so they tried to give you food, and you happily enjoyed the food because the warm, sweet milk. And that's obviously why we enjoy ice cream so much. Why ice cream is so comforting. All right, so how do we stop emotional eating then? How do we start in feeling in control of food and about your body? So as I mentioned before, we need to make sure that we need to understand that we are all emotional beings. As you are sitting here, you are probably seeing something on the screen, or you're hearing something, or you might, whatever I'm saying might trigger a past memory, and that generates an emotion. And we need to be able to deal with our emotions and our triggers throughout the day. And, you know, that's not something that comes easily, because we've just been in default with carrying on with life and then dealing with food. So, we need to be able to manage our anxiety around food, and also manage our stress levels to make sure that we lower our cortisol. Because if we are not managing our stress, unfortunately, that hires our stress hormone called cortisol, and that signals to the brain that there's danger. I need fast energy. Fast energy does not come from the fat cells. So the body goes, I need food. So it's going to create an urge to eat your high energy foods, such as sugar, such as carbohydrates, such as fats. And I'm not shaming these foods. Those are the facts. Those are the types of foods that give you high energy and energy very quickly. And that's why you crave those foods during stressful situations. So what I would like for you to do is grab your pen and paper and draw 3 columns. And at the top of the first column, I want you to write down the heading event. The second column, I want you to write down thoughts. And then I want you to write down emotions. So how this will work is you will write down an event that would trigger thoughts about your body shape, your weight, or your eating. So for example, an event might be, for me in the past, I would see my reflection in the mirror. So that would be the triggering event. Then in your thought column, I would like for you to write down what thoughts are triggered about your shape, your weight, or eating. So this might be, again, these were my thoughts. Gosh, I really need to do something about this. I'm a fat pig. So those are genuine thoughts that I used to have. And then in the third column, write down the emotional consequence, because we know the emotional consequence is what eventually will drive our behavior. So the emotional consequence might be, I feel disappointed in myself. I'm so angry that I can't stop binge eating. And it might go down into, and that means I'm not good enough. All right. So I'd love for you to stop the video if you want to and continue working through these. Look at the triggering events, the emotional that trigger your emotions, and notice how you can start working around these. Another example might be, I see a McDonald's sign, for example. The thought might be, oh God, I should not have that. That is so unhealthy for me. I'm just going to eat that and it's going to go straight to my hips. The emotion that you might create from that is feeling anxious about the food. There might be a sense of being deprived. Well, everyone else is having McDonald's. Why is it only me that why does it only go to my hips? And there might be resentment, and eventually that will build up, and eventually it also probably going to come down to a limiting belief like, I am not worthy to eat McDonald's. So you can see how this kind of builds that emotional space. And it's no wonder that we eventually lean to food, because who wants to feel like I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy to have McDonald's? I'm just using a silly example, but hopefully you get the idea. All right. So now that we understand our thoughts about food, we understand our emotions with food. Now we can move into building habits that last. My client Vilma had a relatively balanced relationship with food, but she felt like she kept getting on and off the diet wagon. She felt that every time she ate a cheat meal, she would be back into old habits, and it took her forever to get back into eating healthy. Now, bear in mind, Vilma and I worked already on healing her relationship with food. We've worked with emotional coping strategies, but what I'm about to share is that she was able to start building habits that lasted, and she was able to stop self-sabotage and indulge mindfully, because she has a young son, and she would like to still indulge, have a little ice cream with him every now and then. And we were able to find that balance. So you rewire your brain by building new habits. So the first habit we need, or how do we build new habits? The first thing we need to get rid of is self-sabotage. Self-sabotage arises from perfectionism and poor boundaries. And perfectionism comes from fear. And unfortunately, we apply perfectionism to our eating plans. And that is why we often feel deprived. Deprivation leads to the body thinking that we in a threat to survival, which means you'll create that urge to eat. Build trust in yourself. In order for you to build new habits, you need to trust and believe that you can change. Now, one of the most challenging things that I work with the clients in the Rewire Your Overeating Brain Mastermind is the fact that they can't trust themselves. And we build that trust slowly throughout the program. It's not something that you just switch on like a light switch. It takes time. The last thing we need to do is ditch your diet mentality. So rewire your brain around how you think about food and what you have learned from the diet industry about your body and food. This is so important, because I think that we just get so lost in the cycle of believing that we're not good enough. Then we go on unhealthy patterns. or we just eat because we figure out, well, what's the point? So I'd like to take you through a quick visualization, if that's okay with you, just to guide you on a visual journey for a minute. So take a moment to sit comfortably, put down your pen and paper, relax your shoulders and close down your eyes. Inhale deeply through your nose and gently release out all the air through your mouth. Let's do that again. Inhale deeply and exhale completely. And one more time, inhale fresh possibilities and exhale all tension. Gently release the breath and allow your breath to flow naturally. Keep your eyes closed if you haven't done so yet. Just follow the ebb and flow of your chest and allow your body to soften with each breath. And I'd like for you to put your hand on your heart and imagine it's 8 weeks from now and you have found food freedom. You can't believe it. You never thought it would be possible. But finally you have control. You were just able to walk through the chocolate aisle without even the slightest urge, and it feels amazing. There was no internal battle to just get a small one. You just passed through the chocolate aisle like it was a stationary aisle. How does it feel to have that control? You didn't obsess. You don't get anxious. And you aren't stressed about food. You make conscious decisions, deliberate decisions around food. And sometimes you say yes, and sometimes you say no. And both are totally okay because you chose it. You mindfully indulge without being triggered. Just take a moment to step into this version of you. What does this version of you say to her friends and family? What does she do on vacation now that she's no longer hung up on controlling food thoughts? What thoughts does she have now that she's not occupied and her thoughts are not occupied with food? What choices does she make? How does she feel in her body? And what does food freedom feel like for her? Now that this version of you is waiting for you, know that food freedom is waiting for you. What would this future version tell the you here now about your relationship with food in your body? Bring that knowing back to the here and now. Gently deepen into your breath. Wiggle your fingers and toes, your hips, your shoulders. And just gently check in and notice what that was like for you. And I want you to know that this version of you is absolutely waiting there for you. And if you are ready to take that leap and start working with your relationship with food, I'm about to show you how you can do that in a very quick 8-week process. So let's just recap for a second. Overeating is caused by an urge to binge. And in order for us to break the urge, you need to rewire your personality. Your relationship with food is built on your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors with food. So now that you know that, there is still a problem. I taught you how to understand why you are stuck in the binge guilt cycle. but you still need to learn the steps to start this journey. And it takes roughly 8 weeks to build new habits. And you've probably been going at this alone. And it's time to take a step with a tribe of highly motivated women, where I will show you step by step how to rewire your brain and give you the support you need and help you stay accountable. So for those of you who want to skip the trial and error and end this war with food in your body, I invite you to join the Rewire Your Overeating Brain Mastermind. This is an 8-week step-by-step program to go from feeling like you're in food prison to being normal with food. I base this on my 3-step process from my binge-free blueprints. Step number 1 is heal your relationship with food. Understand your current thoughts, your emotions, and behaviors with food so that you can break the cycle and rewire your brain. We look at your bio-individual nutrition and meal planning needs. And I provide you with the tools to rewire your brain so you never feel the impulse to binge again. Can you imagine after 3 weeks already managing your impulses to binge? It is so empowering. We then work on healing emotional wounds. Step 2, we can't avoid the emotional part. So we break through emotional hunger and negative self-talk. Self-talk is another reason why we keep ourselves stuck in the binge guilt cycle. We cope with our emotions, present and past. Here's where I give you the tools and the techniques to help heal your relationship with food and your emotions forever, so that you can nourish your mind and body without food. Now, that might sound simple, but most of us don't even know how to do that because that's something we've never been taught. So I give you some easy to use tools to start the nourishing process. And that way we can build habits that last. So stop self-sabotage and yo-yo dieting. We can indulge without being triggered. And best of all is I teach you how to never go on a diet again. So the Rewire Your Overeating Brain Mastermind is made up of 8 group sessions with an intimate group of women who experience binge eating. And I will lead you as an experienced binge eating recovery specialist through the process. Each week you will receive direct support and coaching during our coaching calls. We will dive into the specifics of your current situation and help you navigate the challenges and integrate the tools and strategies you are learning in the mastermind. You also get a private community. So I have just recently taken all my programs off of Facebook and social media. I just feel that it is too loud. So you get a very private, personal community, which is just so much easier to get the information, get the support you need, lean on your sisterhood, and you will get the chance to connect with a sisterhood in the program, people who are experiencing exactly what you are going through. Trust me, this is so important. Like even my clients who come to me one-on-one often feel that they're still alone. They feel, Stel, you've been through this, but I feel currently that I'm alone in this. This way you have someone who feels exactly like you feel, and they are able to help support you and hold your hand. You can ask questions and share your feedback and connect with me daily in this community. And this is all valued at $250. You also have daily access to me in between sessions. So I'm available to take care of you and ensure you have everything you need to take the next steps forward. My clients message me in the evenings and say I'm about to binge. I send them a message on extra tools on how to take them off, talk them off the ledge, or help them if they've unfortunately binged ate. And this is valued at $1,000. So next, you also have lifetime access. So you can repeat everything that you have learned in easy to use models whenever you need a refresher. You can go online and get access to these handouts. And this is valued at $997. We then have our very first bonus. You get 3 individualized one-on-one recovery mentoring sessions with me. And the focus on each of these sessions will be individualized based on what your goals are. I know there's times when you don't want to share certain things in a group setting. So hereby, you actually can still overcome those, and this is mostly in the emotional space, the traumas, the wounds, whatever the case is. You can still work with them, deal with them in a more of a private setting. So these individualized one-on-one recovery coaching sessions are worth $525. And then bonus number 2 is you get 2 months access to the Beyond Overeating Recovery and Yoga membership platform, where you get access to yoga classes, all my live recovery talks and workshops. And this is valued at $198. You also, bonus number 3 is my mindful eating meditation bundle to help you create a healthier relationship with food and improve your digestion. This bundle is jam-packed with meditations, journal prompts, how to heal your relationship with food workshop, and this is valued at $150. So that's a lot of value for the 8 weeks. And the best part, the most amazing thing that you get out of this is you get the skills and the knowledge to stop binge eating for good. So if you would like to end the fight with food and discover confidence in your body once and for all, this Rewire Your Overeating Brain program is for you. You get 8 weeks of workshops in an intimate group with highly motivated women just like you, lifetime access to all materials, a private community, daily access to me, 3 private one-on-one coaching sessions, 2 months access to the Beyond Overeating Recovery and Yoga membership, the Mindful Eating Meditation bundle. And because of this seminar, you also get an additional bonus. You get 3 mentoring sessions with me worth over $500, which will be carried through after your program is finished. So technically, you're getting 11 weeks of support instead of 8. You also can pay this off in installments. So we have 2 installments or a 3 installment plan available. And the next round of the program starts on the 10th of January. And if you are ready to hop on board, I am going to get you to send me a message or click the link below this video. Thank you so much for joining me in this session, learning how to rewire your overeating brain. I'm so excited to see your progress, and I'm so excited for those who decide to come and join us in the mastermind. We just create such amazing bonds and just the most fantastic results from this the mastermind. So if you're ready to rewire your overeating brain in 2022 and make sure that you set yourself up in the first 8 weeks, get rid of binge eating so that you have the rest of 2022 to just focus on stuff that really matter to you, like your family and your children and your career or whatever you want. I encourage you to join the Rewire Your Overeating Brain Mastermind. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I will stop the recording now and take questions for those of you who are online. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me today, and don't forget to share this with all your friends. You can do this by adding this to your Instagram story and tagging me at Wholesome Lifestyle Project, or by simply telling them about it. If you could rate and review on whatever platform you are listening, this will go a long way in helping me get this podcast out there so that I can share my message and help as many women out there struggling with food issues as I can. Don't forget, you can follow me on Instagram on Wholesome Lifestyle Project or connect with me on LinkedIn. My name's Coombe-Heath, and that's where you'll find me on LinkedIn. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.